Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach came out on December 16, 2021. The game aimed for something that had never been seen before in the franchise, opting for a free-roaming, exploration-based horror game instead of using the old Office-style gameplay. Initially, the game was not well received at all by the community due to two major factors, one of them being the overall jankiness of the game lore-wise, leaving even more questions unanswered instead of trying to solve them. The second one, however, was more gameplay related. You see, Steelwolf Studios, the team behind the game, were still learning how to adapt FNAF into free roam, and that was visible with the many delays that Security Breach had had over time. It was much expected that the game would come out with a couple of issues, but players, and especially speedrunners, had no idea of what they were getting into. Within just a few days, dozens of game-breaking glitches had been found. These range from small bugs and skips to straight up going out of bounds with a press of a button and managing to break the game's internal time-space continuum. Needless to say, it had a ton of potential, so without further ado, this is how speedrunners completely destroyed Security Breach. But first, let's quickly talk about the game itself. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach is the biggest game to ever come out of the franchise. It takes place in a futuristic 80s styled mall known as the Mega Pizzaplex. The game has you play as a child named Gregory who needs to escape after hiding inside Freddy past the Pizzaplex's closing hours. After missing the main exit by a couple of seconds, Freddy and Gregory venture across the Pizzaplex in an attempt to find a way out, going through places such as Monty's Gator Golf, Phaser Blast, Bonnie Bowl, and Roxy Raceway, all while avoiding other animatronics as they are attempting to hunt them down due to the infamous glitch. There is also a security guard named Vanessa, but she doesn't really have enough plot relevance to be mentioned anyways. The game has 6 endings, the first one being the escape, which requires you to survive until 6 AM and head to the main exit, then select the leave option and you're done. Also, getting to this specific exit will unlock the possibility to obtain all 6 endings, unless you were to go out of bounds, but let's discuss that later. Secondly, there's a van ending, where you need to stay in the Pizzaplex, make your way to the atrium, and escape through a door in the kitchen below Salatin Sides. Pretty straightforward. The third one is the Vanny ending, which requires you to choose Phaser Blast over Monty Golf after obtaining a party pass at 4 AM. For those who don't know, a party pass lets you gain access to the bigger areas of the Pizzaplex, though you can only use it once. After beating Phaser Blast's minigame, you can get to Vanny's room by opening a vent in the winner's balcony. If you then get to the exit at 6 AM, a third option titled Vanny will appear. Choosing it will play a cutscene where Freddy is dismantled by staff bots under Vanny's command. Afterwards, you must outrun Vanny on a chase from the ground floor of Phaser Blast all the way to her room. Then you just have to press a button and that's it. The fourth one is the Princess Quest ending, which is pretty similar to the Vanny ending, except that you must beat the 2 Princess Quest arcade minigames located in both Roxy Raceway's Glamrock Salon and the West Arcade. If you beat both, you'll be able to play the third arcade in Vanny's room. Beating the third minigame after picking the Vanny option at 6 AM unlocks the ending. Number 5 is the VIP ending, and it's the most confusing one by far. Initially, players thought that you needed every single collectible attainable in the game. That would supposedly trigger an escape sequence if you headed to the Prize Corner's fire exit. Others thought that all 6 golden plushies of Freddy, Chica, Monty, Roxy, Sun, and Moon were needed to unlock the fire exit, but after digging into the game's code, it turns out that the requirement consists of getting 39 random collectibles, which is about 40% of the total value. This discovery made the VIP speedruns way faster than they previously were. Lastly, there's the true ending. Not canon, by the way. Where you must destroy all 3 main animatronics, Chica, Monty, and Roxy, use their parts to upgrade Freddy, then head to the sinkhole below Roxy Raceway and head down to the ruins of the pizzeria from FNAF 6, where you'll meet Burntrap, a reincarnation of William Afton. His boss fight requires you to use the conveniently placed burners under where he is at the moment. Doing so 5 to 8 times will trigger the final cutscene and beat the game. From what I've told you so far, it would seem like the escape ending would be the fastest, as it only requires you to get to the main lobby exit at 6 AM and leave, right? Well, players thought so too, but within a few hours that would rapidly change. The release of Security Breach was not well received by the general public, and for a good reason. The game was not scary, It was immensely heavy in size, seeing as how previous FNAF games were way lighter, and it was riddled with bugs everywhere. The only part of the community that saw light within the game were speedrunners themselves, as those glitches the game had would make up for some of the greatest speedrun strats in history. We're gonna be talking about two types of speedruns, both done in the 1.04 patch, as it contained the most glitch potential. OOB and N.M.S are the categories I'll mention. OOB stands for out of bounds. In this category, players can break the boundaries of the map and cause as many sequence breaks as they wish in an attempt to beat the game as fast as possible. N.M.S, however, is the exact opposite. It stands for no major skips, and it must only use small time saves that don't necessarily skip large chunks of time. We're also going to be mainly focusing on PC runs, as they're relatively faster compared to console, although those runs are also notable, so I recommend checking them out. We'll be talking about the out of bounds category first, and then move on to no major skips, as both categories contain insane strats that were optimized over time. Although there is an unrestricted category that's very slightly faster than out of bounds, I won't be talking about it since most of its additional skips are hardware dependent, which means your PC would need certain parts to make some skips work. Kind of unfair. Out of Bounds was heavily expanded just a few hours after the game's release. The preferred ending for this category turned out to be the Vanny ending because of a huge game changer. You see, Phaser Blast has two platforms set aside from the ground. If you were to jump out of one of these platforms, you'd be able to land on top of the first floor's walls. By then performing a precise set of jumps, you could access the staircase at the end of the Vanny chase and make your way to her room. This would skip more than half of the game, meaning you could beat it in under 20 minutes. Within the first couple of days. One of the first runs with surviving video footage was a 44:59 by Gamer Pros, just a day after the game had released. The run was good, but very unpolished, which was obviously expected. They go through the game normally, completing the intro, lobby, daycare, and prize corner sequences until they get caught by Vanessa and put in Lost and Found. After going back to the atrium, the player is supposed to head down to Roxy Raceway and meet Freddy. But Gamer Pros did this instead. They climb up the boxes and then walk on the walls of the construction site. By then executing a precise set of jumps, they successfully make it to Phaser Blast, skipping more than half an hour of gameplay. By then executing yet another precise set of jumps, they perform a deload, a trick that you'll see a lot in the following runs, which allows you to unload every asset in the map for a short amount of time, allowing you to go wherever you want to. Then, they position themselves in the elevator in such a way that allows them to load in the Phaser Blast area. Afterwards, they beat the minigame as a safe way of making sure that you weren't being targeted while doing the jumps. Then, it's just a matter of doing the jumps, making your way to the room, and pressing the button.
That lady's in a secret room above Phaser Blast. It looks like a hideout.
The run was well executed, but it still had a lot of time to save. And just a few hours later, some random guy by the name of Astral Spiff would start running as well.
Done! Bam! Sub 27! The first day we beat the game in under 27 minutes. That's just ridiculous.
At 26:57. This was not only the first sub 30-minute run, but the first deathless run as well. The optimization was insane, but the main route remained pretty much the same. The only difference being the fact that Spiff chose to do the Salads Inside segment instead of the prize corner, as it was slightly faster. But with so many strats being found at the moment, how low could the time get? Well, 2 days after Spiff's run, a speedrunner named Pat Rogue got a time of 14:33. This time was an insane step up from the previous record. So what exactly saved 12 minutes? Well, 2 of the biggest glitches in Security Breach's history had just been found. The first glitch occurs if you turn voice volume all the way down to 0. If you don't know, the voice volume controls character voice lines, and doing this would skip every single one of them in less than a second, except for scripted events such as the Vanessa First Aid cutscene. At the time, this was massive, as it made sequences such as the intro way faster than before, and over time the time saves would stack up. The other glitch had to do with Freddy. You see, if you were to leave Freddy while facing a wall, he would face you right through it. Doing this near the Phaser Blast entrance would allow you to just clip through the wall and proceed with your run. But how exactly could you get to Phaser Blast's entrance if the atrium is filled with metal gates at the start? Well, Steelwool didn't really notice that you could just jump right over them in specific spots, so that checks out. With all these skips performed, Pat Rogue got to the Vanny room and finished the run with the world's first sub 15. But just a few minutes after that run, a well-known speedrunner by the name of AJ, known for his runs in various horror games, mainly Puppy Playtime Chapter 1 at the time, saw the speedrun and beat it within 4 hours with a 14:22, then a 14:15, a 14:01, and a 14 flat. All of these happened in the same day, so the sub 14 was bound to happen, and sure enough, AJ got it a couple of hours later. That wasn't gonna stop Pat Rogue though, as he got a 13:49, beating AJ sub 14. But it was AJ that we're messing with, so not even 20 minutes later, he got a 13:42. Think this is where the story ends? Nope, because another 20 minutes went by and Pat Rogue took his world record back with a 13:38, only to be beaten by AJ with a 13:23. This wasn't all about optimization though, as a new skip had been found to bypass having to jump over the metal gates. By positioning yourself just right on the second floor of the atrium and jumping over a trash can, you could trigger yet another deload and access Phaser Blast slightly quicker. Anyways, let's get back to the fight for the record. Pat Rogue nearly beat AJ's time with another 13:26, but AJ's optimization was so well executed that they could not catch up. Pat Rogue knew that they'd have to try out something different, and just a couple of hours later, this happened. Now, you might be a little confused as to what you just saw, but by carefully jumping over the glass barrier, the game will trigger yet another deload, so doing the Freddy clip was no longer necessary. Pat Rogue finished off with a 13:06, just a few seconds off a sub 13, and the next day, AJ managed to get a 12:57, breaking yet another barrier. Within a week, the time had been cut down from a 44-minute run to a 13-minute run, but times will drop even lower. Way lower. On Christmas Day 2021, Pat Rogue got an insane time. It wasn't a sub 12, it wasn't a sub 11, the time was 3 minutes 58 seconds. Only a single skip had been added to the run, a skip that would change Security Breach speedruns forever. Let me introduce you to the curtain clip. The in-game pizzaplex is interconnected by hallways. For example, Rockstar Row has 2 hallways that connect to the atrium, but they're locked until you get a certain security level. If you were to find a way out of bounds in Rockstar Row, you could possibly make your way to Phaser Blast and skip the lobby and daycare sequences. Well, it turns out that this specific curtain in Rockstar Row has some weird properties. By repeatedly jumping on it while pressing S, you could jump your way out of bounds. Then, by standing in the right position to load in the backstage area, and by jumping onto another spot in the atrium to load in the first floor of Roxy Raceway, you had just skipped the whole 10 minutes of runtime. After doing those skips, you could simply perform the trick I mentioned earlier on Gamer Pro's run, head to Phaser Blast, and beat the game. Who knew that a trick used to beat the game in under 45 minutes could be used to beat the game in under 4 minutes? Anyways, later that same day, the time was lowered to a 3:55 by BreezyDev, then a 3:51 by Atlantro, and then Breezy chipped it down bit by bit until they got a 3:41. Oh hey look, AJ's online! It would be a shame if we were to destroy the current world record blind and send him out of time. A 3-minute 29-second run. AJ had broken the sub 3:30 barrier like it was nothing. And that was it for the day. On December 27, however, a new speedrunner will take the record away from AJ, not by a small difference, but by almost 20 seconds. This runner's name was Barney Goose. When Barney Goose got to Faster Blast in their attempt, instead of heading towards the laser tag area like most runners, he went left into the Vanny Chase area instead. It turns out that both of these paths were accessible with different deloads on the rail area, and taking the chase path was significantly faster. With this, they managed to get a whopping 3:11. Now, the moment AJ found out about the strategy, he began grinding it too, aiming for a sub 3, which seemed impossible unless everything was perfectly optimized. Well, AJ was already fun with doing the impossible anyways, and nearing the end of 2021, after more than 400 attempts, he did it.
Yes, yes, yes. Holy sh. Oh.
After AJ's insane 2:59, he quit running the game, and players were left wondering if the record could still be improved in some way. I mean, the record was cut by 42 minutes in less than a month. The only thing left to save in terms of time was the movement itself. But was that even possible? Well, speedrunners Barney Goose, Breezy Dev, and Rifty beat AJ's sub 3-minute run by less than a second, with the help of a time save that had been there the whole time, but was never used. This was stamina saving. Stamina saving was performed by sprinting, then jumping and letting go of the sprint key as to preserve momentum, rinse and repeat. You could save way more stamina than by just running and then waiting for the sprint bar to recharge. This skip could save up to 15 seconds if well optimized, but it was very much tough to do in the early days of the game. After a couple of days of attempts though, Breezy and Rifty were trading records with 257s and 255s, but Rifty came out on top with a 250 flat. Was this the last barrier of out of bounds? And who would be the one to achieve it? Well, what if I told you that a rising speedrunner was going to be the one to crush Rifty's sub 250 dream? Twice. In the same day. Well, this turned out to be true. The runner's name was Michael Cheddar. Michael got a 249 and a 248 in the same day, then a 247 afterwards. No skips were added, just crazy good optimization. Rifty managed to get a 246, but it took them almost half a month to do so. And then, both Rifty and Cheddar just gave up. Speedruns were getting more and more painful to optimize, and a sub 245 didn't seem attainable. The run would have to be perfect, executing all skips in an inhumane manner. But on February 22nd, 2022, a Welsh speedrunner by the name of Roos started the run. A run that would forever be immortalized as one of the greatest security breach speedruns ever. A 244, then retimed to a 243. Everything was perfect. The stamina saving, the curtain clip, out of bounds routing, and the well-timed button press led up to this godlike run. And that's where the record stands today. Michael Cheddar was able to pull off a 244, but nobody matched Roos's record. It's insanely difficult to conquer, but possibly beatable by a couple of frames. Though, who will be the one to achieve such feats? I guess only time will tell. Welp, it's been a single day since I finished writing this script, and by complete coincidence, a major glitch was found in Out of Bounds after a year and a half. Also, I'm kinda sick at the moment, but I don't want to delay the video any longer, so yeah. Turns out that Freddy didn't quit speedrunning. They had been secretly grinding this category for more than a year, and after hundreds of attempts, they found this hidden gem of a skip. What you just witnessed was the starting fence skip. Freddy had kept it a secret for a long period of time, so let me tell you how I suppose that it works. It seems that right after exiting Freddy's room, you could perform an insanely tight wedge jump and fall out of bounds. Afterwards, you'd spawn back in Freddy's room, but since the map would be deloaded, you could directly head into Rockstar Row's hallway and into the curtain. With this skip successfully performed, Freddy cut Ruse's seemingly perfect time by more than 20 seconds. A 2:20 was the final retimed record. This really goes to show how crazy this game's speedruns really get at times. This skip is awfully hard to pull off in a run, but now that it's been deemed possible, quite literally every single out of bounds record is at risk. All I have to say is congrats to Freddy. I'm sure the record will remain at the #1 spot for a long period of time. Alright, it's April 3rd and I gotta get this video out. The record was broken by another 15 seconds. Michael Cheddar pretty much optimized Freddy's run to perfection since they actually made a few mistakes on their attempt. The current record stands at 2:06. Close, but probably not possible to break the 2-minute barrier. What's funny is that, with this skip, Unrestricted managed to find their way into getting a sub 2, which, you guessed it, is also owned by Michael Cheddar, with a 153. I said I wouldn't talk about it, but the only major change that this category brings to the table is how you can control the time it takes for the map to deload and reload using hardware. So it's expected that the run will be slightly faster. Okay, now I can safely say that the records will remain untouched for a long period of time. Unless I take another month with this project and another insane glitch is found, which definitely won't happen. Oh god. Anyways, I'll let 2 months ago Parex take over again. See ya. Now, aside from Unrestricted, Out of Bounds is the fastest category evolved with a single exception. At times so fast that the whole category was placed in an extension page set apart from the main game. This is NG+. NG+ is a category that takes glitches to the next level. It's not really complicated, so I'll keep the explanation short. Basically, every single save file you create occurs in the same map of the Pizzaplex, meaning if you were to play the game and save somewhere, then start up a new save file, your game would run on the same quote-unquote world. Another factor you should consider is that when you fall out of bounds in Security Breach, Gregory is placed next to the last place the game saved at. This means that if you were to fall out of bounds on a brand new save file, you get respawned on the last place you saved on the previous save file you played on. Turns out that there's an autosave right next to the button in Vanny's room, so the objective of the speedrun is to go out of bounds as fast as possible, respawn in Vanny's room, and press the button to end the game. The current record holder for this category is Speedrunner, a well-known Spanish runner who holds dozens of world records in this game. He starts the game, hops on the vent that leads to Rockstar Row, and then jumps on the wedge of a table, eventually making his way out of bounds. Then, all he has to do is fall, pause the game to know the exact moment where he spawns in Vanny's room, as you can see the lag spike it makes by waving your cursor around, presses the button and beats the game in 1 minute and 38 seconds. This is how broken Security Breach can really get. But what if players didn't necessarily want to fully destroy the game, but try to be as perfect as possible while utilizing small time saves along the way? Well, it's time to talk about no major skips. No major skips is interesting for a variety of reasons. It allows players to try and break as much of the game as possible without crossing the line. The record progression wasn't as prominent as in Out of Bounds, but it was still fairly interesting. The main ending we'll be looking at is the escape ending, which is the fastest without major glitches applied, but the run itself still has a lot going on. The player goes for 12 different sequences: the lobby, daycare, salads inside the surprise corner depending on where the player wants to go, although salads is slightly faster, backstage, the Endo warehouse, Monty Golf or Phaser Blast, another choice you can make, as well as Superstar Theater or Bonnie Bowl, which are a consequence of what place you picked earlier, then leading to either Monty's or Chica's boss fight, Roxy Raceway, the West Arcade, Roxy's boss fight, and the final escape back to the lobby. Doing all of these without dying is already hard, but speedrunners took it to the next level. The first ever N.M.S world record was submitted on December 22nd, 2022 by Saul Scribbles, with a total time of 1 hour, 53 minutes, and 21 seconds. This run wasn't so optimized, and despite her dying a couple of times, it was a pretty good start. She opted to destroy Chica instead of Monty, as it was considered slightly faster at the time. As for strats, nothing was really added in apart from the zero voice volume skip, so players knew that the time could be brought down. 6 days after Saul's record, a player by the name of Grimgold got a time of 1 hour, 37 minutes, and 44 seconds, shaving off 15 minutes from the previous run. The run was very well executed, and I'm pretty sure they went for the whole thing deathless. The most notable time save of theirs was the usage of stamina upgrades, as they allow you to slowly chip away walking time. They also picked up the shoes from Glamrock Salon, and despite them being so far away, it pays off at the end due to their high speed. However, the run still had time to improve since they had chosen to head to the prize corner instead of salads and sides, plus the fact that they chose to destroy Chica instead of Monty once again. The day after Grim's run, a runner by the name of Kelser came along and chipped away another 15 minutes from the record. Kelser's run was solid. They picked salads and chose to fight Monty, which already saved a couple of minutes compared to the previous record, but the run had its flaws and Kelser actually died twice. Still, their choices combined with their movement earned them the world record. These runs were good, but 3 days later, another speedrunner by the name of Carden Haster cut off yet another 15 minutes from the record with a 1 hour 6 minute run, and this run wasn't like anything we had seen before. It was phenomenal. The amount of skips introduced in a single run was unbelievable. Some of these included sprinting on Chica's first encounter instead of crouching first, jumping in instead of railings into a locked room to get an early stamina boost, skipping Sun's first cutscene by climbing the daycare slide, running towards a set of barrels in order to stop Roxy from chasing you, making the backstage area much easier, spamming a specific button on the control room to get Freddy to come faster, falling off the second floor in the atrium without deloading the maps in order to get to the stage elevator faster, using Freddy to phase through Chica's green room in order to unlock the party pass, and straight up skipping Monty's boss fight by jumping over the starting trigger. Though, I think it's important to mention that these skips weren't all discovered by Carden, but they were the first to ever execute them all in a run, which got them a well-deserved record. Until Spiff beat it by a few minutes on the same day. Spiff had taken a completely different route compared to Carden by using Chica's route. He went to Fazer Blast and got the Bunny Ball ticket, then immediately left. Turns out that you don't need to beat the game to access Bunny Ball, so destroying Chica would be slightly faster than Monty. Or was it? Strange49 was another rising speedrunner that managed to finish an N.M.S run in 1 hour and 8 minutes, then retimed to a 1:01. This run was for the Monty route instead of Chica's, and it paid off at the end. No new tricks were added, everything was a work of optimization. He could have been the first to achieve a sub-hour time, but he died once in parts and services. Despite that, it would only take 2 weeks before someone would get the run done in under an hour. RNG Retro became the first to achieve a sub-hour time, with a 55:58. They only used 2 new time saves, so how did those chip 5 minutes over a dangerous run? Well, it was around this time that the stamina saving strat became popular in speedruns of Security Breach. It was difficult to do it for an hour non-stop, but Retro attempted it and it showed results. Another strategy they used was a way to cut time on the backstage section by jumping over a pile of boxes in order to save about 10 seconds. Not a lot, but it was easy enough to adapt into runs. Half a month went by and a player by the name of Maffy stole Retro's record with a 53-43. No new strats were used, just better movement overall. Retro attempted to take it back, but Maffy overtook them once again with a 52-40 on February 21st. This record would then remain unmatched for 3 months, mainly because people had lost interest in speedrunning the game. But on May 5th, an American player named Punchshot will finally beat the record after dozens of attempts. 52-16. No new strats once again, just major optimization everywhere. The sub 50 barrier looked possible, and Punch was getting closer to it. 2 months later, he got a 50-49 run. At the time, this was as close as we had to perfection, and the community was congratulating him for doing so. Among those positive comments, there was a familiar name, Biturrete. I talked about how he managed to pull off the fastest security breach run on speedrun.com. I wonder if he ever tried N.M.S. September 2nd, 2022. 2 whole months after Punch's 50-48 run, Pit managed to pull off a 48-37 N.M.S. run, breaking both the 50 and 49 minute barriers. Once again, no new strats had been added. He was just that good with movement and optimization. It was astonishing. The run really showed how far people could push the limits of a game. Pit wasn't done though, as throughout the following months, he will lower the record a staggering 5 times, with the final time being a 47:02 on July 4th, 2023. The amount of effort Pit put into perfecting these is beyond me. A sub 47 could be possible, but seeing as how perfect the run is as of right now, I wouldn't be surprised if it remained uncontested for a long time. And this concludes the history of N.M.S. Security Breach didn't turn out to be what the community expected, but Speedrunners found gold with its game-breaking mechanics, pushing the boundaries in ways nobody could have ever predicted. Both the current out-of-bounds and no major skips records were held for a pretty long time, but I don't think that this is the end. Security Breach has hit its speedrunning peak, but who knows what broken skips and time saves could still be hiding, waiting to be found. I mean, the out-of-bounds record was beaten just a few days ago, so who knows how low it can get from here. I wanted to thank Hawks for making the original speedrun history Security Breach, as it was my biggest inspiration and it helped me out a ton. I also wanted to thank everyone who has helped me throughout the duration of this project, mainly the Security Breach speedrunning Discord, which I will link down below. Lastly, thank you for watching. These videos take an immense amount of time to make, and I'm sorry that I went so long without uploading. I really wanted the channel reworking process to turn out fine, so thank you, from the bottom of my heart. As for me, I suppose I'll be heading out, so until next time, see ya!